were we discussing last time? I think had discussed the assignment operator, and I don't know whether after the overloaded assignment operator we had discussed something else or not. Do you guys remember what did we discuss at the end of last class? Overloading assignment operator, yes. Okay, so I hope that's clear that when do we need to overload the assignment operator? Chaining operators using, returning by reference. Okay, good. Okay, so let's start with the assignment operator. Is it clear to everybody? When do we need to overload the assignment operator? Because as we discussed last time, if you don't make any assignment operator for your new class, the C++ compiler will generate a default assignment operator for every user-defined type. Okay, so it will generate a default assignment operator for your new class also. But sometimes the default operator is not enough. Okay, so the class has just started. Okay? It's 4 o'clock. I emailed you that asking you whether you are going for the 4 p.m. time, and you did not respond. So I assume that we are going by the default time. So yes, so I hope it's clear to everybody that the default assignment operator is created for every user-defined type, and for your user-defined class also, the compiler will generate a default assignment operator. But the question is, when is that default assignment operator not enough, and therefore when do we need to define or overload our own assignment operator? Okay, good. So there might be other scenarios also, but one of the scenarios that we have studied, especially the scenario that we have studied, is that when inside your class you have dynamic allocation, the default assignment operator is not good enough. Okay, because the default assignment operator will basically do a member-wise copy, and it will copy just the value of the pointer that is basically pointing to the dynamically allocated memory. And therefore, when you copy your class using the default assignment operator, both the original class and the newly copied class, they will have the same pointer value, so they will basically point to the same dynamically allocated memory location. Therefore, in this case, if we want to preserve the semantics of the copy, that is, that two copies should be totally separate, and modifying one of the copies should not affect the other copy. In that case, the default assignment operator fails to do the job, and we have to define our own assignment operator, overload the assignment operator for our new class. And that we saw in the last class how to do that. So in this case, there are many rules of thumbs in C++, which we call C++ idioms. And one of those idioms is basically called rule of three. So the rule of three says that if you need to overload one of these three things for your class, if you want to declare either a copy constructor or an assignment operator or a destructor. Okay, so if you are feeling the need to define one of these three functions for your new class, there is a high probability that you need to define all three of them. Okay, so usually you define all three of these functions together. Either you don't define them, none of them, or you define three of them. It is extremely rare, almost never happens that you need to define only one or two of these functions and not the others. So the three functions are basically the copy constructor, destructor, and submit operator. So if you are defining any one of them, it is highly likely that you need to define the other two also. Okay, so let's take the case of dynamic memory. Whenever you have dynamic memory in your class, you will need to have a destructor. Okay, otherwise you won't know when to destroy your memory. Okay, when to free the memory that you have allocated. And as we have already discussed in our classes, that when we are using this dynamic memory allocation in our classes, we need to have copy constructor as well as assignment operator overloaded or defined for user-defined class. Okay, so these three functions are usually defined together. Okay. What cases happen? There can be cases other like, let's say you have opened file in your classes. Okay? In that case, the file will belong to open file will belong to one class. So if we need to like make a copy of that class, in that case you will have to decide what do you need to do for those open files in your class. Because if you use a default copy operator, it will just make a member copy, and it will copy basically the same file pointer to the new class also. So if you wanted that to happen, that's well and good. But if you want basically a separate, the copy to be completely independent from the original class or object, then basically you need to define the assignment operator and see what you need to do when a copy of your class is made. Okay, so file pointer is still a pointer, but it's different from dynamic. You will need to handle that differently. Any other question? Okay, so if that's okay, let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, so can you guys see the screen, the terminal that I've shared with you guys? Can you guys see the shared screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't hear properly, but I am assuming that it's
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's discuss something that I have been wanting to discuss for the last two classes, but we did not get the time. So we had this class, excuse me, string 3. Let's copy it to my string pro.cp. Okay, So this class, we have used it a couple of times. So I hope you are familiar with this now. So this is a class which basically tries to replicate or simulate the behavior of the C++ string class. It's not as featureful as the string class provided by the C++ library, but we have some functionality in it. So we can see that we have a default constructor which initially initializes the string to null. So internally we are storing the representation of the string as a character array. Okay, so that character array will be dynamically allocated and we'll be storing the starting address of that character array. Okay? And inside that character array, basically we'll store the string as it is stored in the C language, which means it will be basically a array of characters terminated by null character. So this pointer str will basically store the starting address of the dynamically allocated array of characters. So default constructor will initialize it to null. We have a constructor that basically takes in a C-style string, which is basically pointed to a character array terminated by null pointer, and creates an object of this class myString by copying this, allocating memory for that string, and then copying the content of the string from the basically constant pointer passed to it into internal memory that is allocated. Similarly, we have a third constructor. This one basically is a copy constructor. So it copies, creates a new object of type myString from an existing object of type myString. Okay. So here it is, initializing a new object from an existing object. It will use this copy constructor. Then we have this function show. We have an index operator, which basically we can use, the array subscript operator, which we can use with objects of our myString type to write or read one character at a time, just like we can do with a C-style array. So last time we defined this assignment operator, and then we have a destructor which ultimately destroys the memory allocated to this object when this object will be destroyed. Okay. So there's something that I wanted to discuss. Let's say we have this. This is a question that I always forget his name. 147, what's your name? Okay, I remember his number. Hamza, thank you very much. I don't know why, but I have always Osama in my mind. But I know that Osama is not correct, but I always forget Hamza and there's Osama in my mind. Thank you very much. So Hamza had asked this question a couple of weeks ago, and it is a very important question. Let's say we have this integer a is equal to x plus y plus z. Okay. So the thing is, what will happen here is that in computers, we usually do not have instructions to add 3 numbers. Okay, even if you had instructions to add 3 numbers, user could basically change this operator. He can give you 4 integers to add, or 10 integers to add, or 50 integers to add in one instruction. Okay. But computers usually add 2 integers at a time. So this line, when it will be executed, it will not be executed as one line inside the processor. Okay, it will be, this operation will be broken down into multiple smaller operations, and those smaller operations will be executed one by one. So in this chaining of binary plus operator, we saw that binary plus operator has an associativity from left to right. Okay, so which means it will start from the left and first add these 2 numbers. So the sum of these 2 numbers will then be added to this third integer z. So where will that sum of that, that sum of these two integers x and y, where will that be stored, and how will that resultant value be used to add to this third integer z? So do you guys get the point that there is a value being created temporarily inside this expression, and that value is correct, as you guys have said, that value is a temporary value. Okay, so a temporary value is something that the compiler creates in the background for its own use, and basically we as programmers are not supposed to see those temporary values. So this x, the sum of this x plus y, it will be a temporary value that will be created, and it will exist only for the duration of this statement. Okay? So it will be created, it will be stored temporarily, and then it will be added to this third integer z. So the sum of these three integers, sum of x plus y, the temporary value, and z, again it will be the sum of all three integers. It will be a value that will be produced, and again it will be temporarily stored somewhere until that total sum, the last temporary value, is assigned and stored in A. Okay? So for this, there will be two temporary values that will be created. One, sum of x plus y, and the third, which is basically the sum of all three integers. Okay? So they are temporarily stored. They do not exist before this statement. They do these values did not exist before line number 73, before the execution of line number 73, and they will not exist after the execution of line number 73. But during the time that the code for this line number 73 is executed, those two temporary values are created, used. Okay, so they exist between the execution of this expression x plus y plus z. So these temporary values are basically an example of R values. Okay. We had discussed L values and R values. L values, we know, usually are found on the left of the assignment operator, and R values are found on to the right of the assignment operator. Okay. So last time when we discussed the examples of R values, we said that this 3 is an R value, 5 is an R value, okay, because you can't take the address of 3, you can't take the address of this 5, they have no memory location associated with them. Similarly, these temporary variables or temporary values that will be created, they are also examples of R values. They do not have a memory location associated with them, and we cannot take addresses of those temporary values. Okay. So this is one example of a temporary value. And similarly, if I say like this, z is equal to return by value. Okay. So here, this return by value, it is just a function which declares an integer, stores a value in it, and then returns that integer. But it returns that this integer by value. Okay, so it's a return by value, not by reference or something else. So this return by value also happens via a temporary object. Okay, so the value that will be returned, that will replace this function call, it will not be x. Okay, because the value, the return value of this function, it will be assigned to z after this function call has terminated. And after this function call has terminated, the variable x would also have been destroyed. Okay. So x does not exist after this function call has terminated. So what happens is that the compiler knows that it has to basically copy the value of this x into z. But since x will no longer exist after this function call, the compiler basically stores this return value of x temporarily in a temporary object. Okay, so basically this temporary object will replace this function call, and the assignment will happen from that temporary object to z. Okay. So the value will be copied from the temporary object and stored in the variable z. So this return by value also creates a temporary object. Again, this temporary object is also an example of an R value. It does not necessarily have a memory location associated with it, and we cannot take the address of this temporary object, which is an R value. Okay, is this thing understandable, what I'm talking about? Temporary objects are created in the background when you have like a very complex operation and the compiler needs to store some value temporarily. It will create temporary objects, and also when you are returning objects by value, compiler will create temporary objects to store those values after the function call has terminated. Okay, and these temporary values are R values. So by definition, R values, they don't have memory location associated with them, and we cannot take their addresses. And basically, these temporary values, they will no longer exist once the statement in which they are being used has finished. Okay, is it clear? Is it important to make them R value? Because if they were L value, each would need its own memory location. So in complex calculation, computer would auto memory. Yes, because we have studied the scope of variables, right? That you have variables with global scope, you have variables with local scope, etc. Local scope is bounded by those curly brackets, whether inside a function or inside a for loop, etc. So yes, these values, temporary values, I mean the local variables, they are created, they are used, and then they are destroyed. Okay? So we cannot store them forever, because if we keep accumulating variables, we'll eventually run out of memory. So local variables are only stored during the scope in which they are needed, which means the local scope. Once that local scope has finished, we destroy those local variables. Similarly, these temporary values are also basically stored only for the scope for which they are needed. Okay? So these temporary values, the way compiler generates them is that they are only needed for the expression which we are evaluating. Okay? So after that expression, we will not need those temporary values. So that's why basically beyond those expressions, these temporary values, they no longer exist. Okay, so yes, that frees up memory also. I mean, they may not, especially in this integer case, they will not be stored in memory. There's something else in processor called registers. They'll be stored in those registers. But I mean, I hope I answered your question. That even if you store them in memory, since we do not need them after that evaluation of that expression, therefore they are immediately destroyed. Okay. Okay. So since okay, so if this is clear, then let's move a little further and see what will happen if we. So what does my string has? Basically, it has an assignment operator and. Okay. So let's say if we have this. S3 is equal to S2, but the assignment operator is returning by reference, so this will not work. Okay, so let's make a concatenation operator. Okay, so let's basically make a. So here the assignment operator is returning not by reference but by I think we changed it to, yes, I think it was Mohammad Fari who asked some question and we changed this to value instead of returning by reference. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, Mohammad Fari, you had asked a question that what happens, I mean, why does this return by reference, I think it was something like this, S3 is equal to S2 is equal to S1. No, it was not this question. Mohammad, do you remember you had asked a question? I think it was in the context of this plus operator. So let's, sorry, let's define a plus operator. So this usually returns a reference, but let my string operator plus. So it will add two strings, and by addition of strings, let us say that addition of strings mean concatenation of strings. Okay? So cos my string percent RHS. It's a binary operator, but since it's a member function, so we will basically pass it only one argument, the RHS one, okay, the one to the right hand side of the plus operator. The LHS one, the one to the left hand side of the plus operator, basically for that object, the function would have been called for that object. Okay, so we will already have access to the elements of that object, so we do not need to have basically pass it as an argument. So by plus, let's define plus for our myString object as a concatenation operator. Okay? So the sum of two strings is basically the string that you obtain by concatenating those two strings. So let us implement this. So first, basically, and size is equal to strlen string, sorry, the string for the LHS object plus the okay, and then plus one to add 0 at the end. So there we go, and then we basically allocate this. No, not 20, but let's go with temp size, and then we copy. So this is good, and then we copy str copy temp, and first we copy the left hand side string, and then we copy. So the new string should be copied after the first string. Okay, so the address should be temp plus strlen of what's it called, str. Okay, so this is a new address plus we have to copy it from the rhs.str. Okay. So I think this will basically take care of the well, let's say if there are two characters, so two characters will be copied, black 0 and 2. It will be, so yes, it will take care of the null character after the first string. So when this is good, then we basically create a new object return value using this temp and okay. So there might be some error checking code needed for a proper implementation, but for our purposes, this is good that it will define a binary plus operator for type myString. This will basically have two operands, one to the left hand side and the other to the right hand side. And this basically binary operator, what it will do is that it will concatenate its two operands and return the result in a new myString type, right? So let's see if we have implemented it correctly. So what should happen is here myString s4 is equal to s1 plus s2 s4 dot show. Okay. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Yep. You see, it says, and the plus operator is working, and it has concatenated the two strings. Okay, so let's chain it. Let's see. Okay, hello bye world. So what it's doing is basically this is, let me put the line. Plus operators, as we discussed, has associativity from left to right. So first of all, the plus operator will be called for these two objects. So S1's function will be called, and S2 will be passed to it as an argument, RHS. Okay, so this will basically create a new string, and that new string will be replacing these two. I mean this expression, the sub expression S1 plus S2. It will be this sum will be replaced by the new string returned, which will be the concatenation of these two strings. Okay? And then the second plus operator will be called. So the function, the LHS would be the result of these two, S1 plus S2, which is basically the concatenated string returned by the plus operator, the first plus operator. So that would be the LHS left hand side operand of the second plus operator. So the function operator plus will be called for the concatenated string returned by the sum of these two. So that string's function will be called, and S3 will be passed to it as a argument. So again, the operator plus function will be concatenating these two strings and basically return this final concatenated string, which will basically be the sum of these two strings, and that string will be used to initialize S4. Okay. So is this working clear? Okay, so was in this class? No, there has been a communication gap. So this class was not scheduled at 2:50, and it is happening at 4. And the next class also, which will be like after the mids, that will also happen at 4. So strcopy technically copies \0, but the next address that we give to strcopy, we have calculated it in such a way that, okay, let me show the function. It is the function from line number 39 to line number 50. So Mohammad Fareh, the address that we calculate here, the second address, it basically starts from the \0 of the terminating null character of the first string. Okay? Which is why when this second string will be copied, it will be copying from that null terminator of the first string and will overwrite the null terminator of that first string. Okay? So it's not the compiler that does it, it's basically this address calculation which takes care of the first null terminator. Okay, so this second string will be written starting from the null terminator of the first string. Okay, is it clear, the function? It's basically just the binary plus operator that we have already overloaded earlier for that my complex type, and now we are overloading it for my string type, and just that we have changed the meaning of plus for my string. Basically the plus operator, we have defined it as a concatenation operator. So we accidentally wrote this, we would get two null. Yes, you will get two null characters in the string, and basically a string has only one null character. So when you display that string, the function, it will basically reach the first null character, and it will assume that the string has terminated. Okay, so by definition, null terminator basically terminates a string. Okay, so yeah, one string can have only one null terminator. Okay, so is this clear? The overloading of the plus operator and how it is being used in that S1 plus S2 plus S3 statement? Repeat this plus operator. Yeah, Talha, we had, this plus operator, we had, it's a binary plus operator. It's a binary plus operator, and the plus operator, we have already, we know that we can redefine the meaning of this plus operator for our new classes by overloading it. And we had already done so for the my complex type. And here we are basically overloading it for the my string type, and we have defined it to be a concatenation operator. So what concatenation does is basically it will take the these two strings, one which is from the left hand side operand of the plus operator, and the other which is from the right hand side operator of the plus operator. So it will take these two strings and it will combine them into a new string. So how it does is it first calculates the total size required to hold both the strings. Okay. So once it has calculated the total size for the two strings, it allocates memory for that much characters, and then basically it will store this in temp. And then what it will do is it will temp is basically the pointer which is pointing to the memory which is allocated on the heap and has enough number of characters to store both the strings. So it first copies the left hand string, the left hand operand of the plus operator. It first copies that string at the start of temp. Okay, the starting address of temp. It copies the left string, and then after the first string, basically temp plus strlen str, it will calculate the address inside the array after the first string. So after the first string, it copies the second string, which is basically the right hand side operand of the plus operator. Okay, so these two strings, they will be copied back to back inside this memory that we have allocated, and this is basically concatenation. So once this memory is done, this is just a character array. We will use this character array to initialize or create a new MyString type. which this function will return. Because plus operator, it takes two arguments of type myString and returns or results in another object of type myString, which will basically be the concatenation of the two operands. Okay, others also. Osman Tahir, to you also, is it clear? Okay, to others, is this plus operator clear? Okay, so now let's come back to this. Was just an operator that we defined, and notice that it is returning the result by value. Okay, it is returning the result by value, and if we go down here, basically this S1 plus S2, this sum will result in the concatenation of S1 plus S2, and that object which will be returned by this plus operator, the first plus operator, it will be a temporary object. It will be a temporary object and it will be an R value. So the C++ standard basically allows us to basically call functions on R values, member function. R values, member functions can be called on R value objects. Okay, so here S1 plus S2, this will result in a temporary object, the concatenation of S1 and S2, and for that temporary object, which is an R value, this operator plus will be called for the second plus operator, the function, and since it's a member function, we can call member functions on temporary R value objects. Okay, and then S3 will be passed to that member function, which will be called on a temporary R value, and that basically plus operator function, it will again combine the previous concatenated string and this S3 into a new myString object, which will again be an R value. It will be basically temporarily replacing this triple sum S1 plus S2 plus S3, and then this S4 will be initialized from that last temporary object, which is also an R value. Okay? So S4 will basically call copy constructor, which will receive an R value. Okay, is it clear, the creation of temporary objects? And this S1 plus S2, and the fact that those temporary values are R values, temporary objects are R values, and C++ standard allows member functions to be called on temporary R values. Okay, so I'm hoping that is clear. So the thing is, I think now I remember the question which was asked by Mohammad Fareh at that day. The question is that if we have this, let's say I'll comment this one. Let's say we have this question S1 plus S2 is equal to S3. Will this function statement work or not? Based on our discussion so far.
Sir, we are assigning one value to two different values. So it didn't.
Okay, so no, it's not. It doesn't work like this. That we are not assigning one value to two different values. What will happen is the compiler, it will evaluate. We have an expression on the right, sorry, on the left. We have an expression. What will happen is the compiler will evaluate this expression. Okay, it will evaluate this expression based on the rules and the working of this expression, and this expression will provide a final result. Okay? So this S3 value, it will be assigned to that final result. It will not be assigned to S1 and S2.
But the result will be temporary, isn't it? Be temporary, sir.
Exactly, it will be temporary. That's what I'm asking. So will this, based on what we have discussed so far, will this statement work or not? Let's compile it and see. It compiled and it does nothing because this S1 plus S2, it will basically return a temporary object, and S3 will be, since it is the plus operator is returning by value, so it will return a temporary object. Okay. And this S3 will be assigned to that temporary object. Normally, this temporary object is an R value, and we have said that R values on the left side of the assignment operator, we do not basically require R values, but we should have L values, which is basically clear if I, let's say if I do this return by value, if I do this, value is equal to 33. Okay, so this will also do the same thing. Line number 85 and line number 87 both will return a temporary R value to the left of the assignment operator. So if we compile this one, okay, you see here it is clearly telling me L value required as left operand of assignment operator. So on one hand, it is telling us that R values cannot be at the left hand of the assignment operator, and on the other hand, it is not giving an error on this. So this is what I had said that I'll look up and get back to you guys. So here the thing is that the temporary object, the assignment operator is not a direct assignment operator, but it is that overloaded assignment operator that will be called. Okay. So it will be called as a function of this temporary object. And basically C++ standard allows us to be able to call member functions on R value objects. So here it does not give an error because this assignment operator, it will be called as a member function of this temporary object. Okay, so there is this on the surface seems like a contradiction that here we have an R value to left of the assignment operator, but it is not giving us an error. But I mean, the standard has kind of, it is slightly confusing here that this is allowed because this assignment operator, it's a member function which is being called for this temporary R type of R value object, and C++ standard allows calling member function on R value objects. Is it clear?
Sir, I think the user-defined functions, we have the objects S1 and S2 are user-defined. That's why the compiler is ignoring it and not giving an error on this. While it's defined for the built-in means the default data types, it is defined that you should give an error.
Yes, for built-in data types, I mean, it is defined that the assignment operator should have an L value to the left of it. But for the user-defined types, there is a contradiction between the rules that on the left-hand side we should have an L value and the rule that we can call member functions on R type values. Because if calling member functions on R type values was not allowed, then we will not be able to chain this operator here. Okay, because here the second plus operator is a member function that is called on this R type R value object. Okay, so to allow this rule, here also this rule takes precedence, and the assignment operator basically is called as a member function on this temporary R value object.
She Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
But sir, there is one thing, the chaining is happening on the right side of the equation in my string S4 is equal to S1 plus F2 is plus S3. And here we are doing it on the left side, S1 plus S2 is equal to 3. So compiler should know that which one is on the left side and which one is on the right side. So it may give an error on the left side.
No, the rule that I'm saying is that the rule talks about being able to call member function on temporary R value objects. Okay? The rule does not say that whether that object should be on the left side of the assignment operator or on the right side of the assignment operator. Okay, so here assignment operator is a member function, just like any operator. Just like this plus operator, this assignment operator is also a member function. So it is allowed to call member function on temporary R value objects. Okay. So would it give with C++? You should really, you should break rules only when you think you are better than the compiler. So would it give an error if we commented out the overloaded equal to function? Yeah, in that case, it would give an error, but the error would be that the assignment operator is not defined. Oh no, the assignment operator is defined for the the built-in assignment operator is the default operator generated. So I think the default operator will also be called as a member function, but let's verify it. We comment this assignment operator. And now we compile it again. Oops, let's remove this one. Yeah. So the built-in one is also since it's a member function that is being defined, the assignment operator. So we are able to call that also. Okay, so this thing you can basically explore further on your own. Let's come to what was supposed to be the main topic of today's lecture. Okay, so the thing is, these temporary objects, they are created and they could be created multiple times within the same expression, and they are also created when you're returning from the function. But it could happen that your objects can be very, very large. Let's say you have dynamically allocated memory of like 100 MB in every object. Okay, you have a class of images which basically store image data, and images can be very big, as we know, and those images can be let's say they take hundreds of megabytes in RAM. So when you are creating those temporary objects, you are basically creating new objects, and these new objects, they are they are constructed using those constructors, and inside the constructors there will be memory allocated, and memory will be copied from the source to destination, etc. So this creation of temporary objects, it could be very costly for your performance. Yes, you'll be wasting a lot of memory, and you'll be wasting a lot of time copying all that data. Okay? And this, despite the fact that these temporary objects, they exist only for like the fraction of a statement. Okay? As soon as they are used, they get destroyed. So what's the use of creating all those temporary objects if, let's say, if they are not needed too much, a lot. Okay, so if they are consuming too much time or too much space, then what's the use of creating those objects? Okay, so if we can do without those objects. I mean, if you can avoid copying all those data, won't it be great? So in this, let's see. So here, let's simplify things. S1 plus S2. So how many constructors do you think will be called for this? I mean, for this, how many temporary objects will be created? In this statement. Objects that you have not created in the code and which will be created just in the background.
One, sir.
Good, one. Okay, so that one will be which will be returned by this function. Okay, so how many constructors do you think will there be called? S1, S2, S3. They will be called. Let's basically. Default, hopefully will not need default. Default won't be called. And let's just say okay, so assignment operator. So in this line number 83, what will be called? Will assignment operator be called in this line number 83?
Sir, copy constructor.
Very good. Assignment operator will not be called, but copy constructor will be called. Very good. So let us basically see the output of this. So we should have this C string constructor called for S1, for S2, for S3, and then we should have this. Okay, let's just see. C++. Okay. So this C string constructor S1 for S2 for S3, and this fourth one, let's see. Okay, so this is called for S1, S2, S3, and then if we go inside this plus operator, we will see that this return retval value, it is also being constructed from a character pointer. Okay, so again, C string constructor is called for this retval, and this ret value is returned, and when this ret value is returned, basically copy constructor should have been called, but copy constructor is not being called. So this is because compiler sometimes it basically performs some optimizations, and sometimes it deletes code that it thinks is not useful. So what we can do is we can basically tell the compiler to not perform that optimization if no elide constructors. So now it has not performed that optimization, and let's see what happens now. So you see the first three constructors are the same. This is the copy C string constructor for S1, for S2, for S3, for return value, and then these two copy constructors are called. For what objects these two copy constructors are being called? So one will be called for S4, as you guys said. The last one will be called for S4. So for the second last or the very good. Okay, so the second last copy constructor or the first copy constructor is being called for the temp. Okay, because temporary object is also being constructed, and whenever there is an object being constructed, it will be basically, a constructor is called. Okay, so it will be constructed from a copy of from the return value. Therefore, it is being constructed from an existing object. For temp also, copy constructor will be called. Is this clear to everybody? Which constructors is being called? The first four I hope are easier to understand, but the last two, the copy constructors, is it clear to everybody why the copy constructors are being called? Why there are two copy constructors being called? To others? People other from Fareh and Hamza, is it clear why the two copy constructors are being called? Okay, so I hope others who are also not responding, for them also it's clear. So, okay, so now let's come to the crux of the discussion. The thing is, this temporary object which is being constructed. Okay? So S4 will be constructed from this temporary object. Okay? And if we are basically calling this copy constructor, what the copy constructor does, as you guys can see here, inside the copy constructor basically it will allocate this new memory, and then copy the data one by one to the new memory. Okay, so this is basically a costly operation, and especially keeping in view the fact that this object which is being copied, the temp object, it's only a temporary object. If it's only a temporary object, then instead of copying its data, we know that this object will be destroyed right after this statement. So if it will not be used by anything else. So instead of copying its data, how about this S4 object? Why don't it steals that data? Okay. So stealing data, this concept in C++, it has been introduced after C++ 11, and basically it has a name that we, instead of copying data, we move the data from the temp object to S4. Okay. So we will take that object, that dynamic memory from the temp object, and directly give it to the new object. Okay, so temp object, since it will be destroyed anyway, so it doesn't matter whether we copy its data or we totally take its data from the temp object. Okay? So this is basically called the move operation, and the move operation can be defined on R values. R value, temporary values are R values, and R values basically we know they will not exist after a short time. So instead of copying their data, we can steal their data. So what we can do is, instead of a copy constructor, we can define a move constructor. Okay, so this is a copy constructor, and to distinguish it, to define it as a move constructor, here instead of a normal reference, what we will do is we will basically make it an R value reference. Okay? So whenever this new object will be constructed not from a normal object, but from an R value object, this move constructor will be called. Okay? So here, this double ampersand, it's not a normal reference. It refers to R value reference, and it can only be bound to R value objects. Okay? So this again, the compiler will detect that when an object is being constructed from an R value object, so it will, instead of calling the normal copy constructor, it will call this move constructor, which basically will bind this reference to the R value object. Okay, so this is an R value reference. So R value reference, what we can do is we can basically do away with this copy. And instead of copying data, we can just directly steal that data. So here our size, sorry, str is equal to p dot str. There you go. And p dot str, we make it null just to be consistent. Okay, so here basically, since on the right hand side we will have a temporary R value object, so it's no use copying the data because sometimes objects can be huge and temporary objects are going to be destroyed anyway. So instead of copying their data, we can steal or move their data, and that way we will save ourselves lots of trouble in terms of time and memory. Okay, so now that we have a move constructor, here normally this S4 object will be constructed from an R value object. So instead of a copy constructor, normally it should be a move constructor should be called. So let us my string str in read only object. Achha, okay. So if we can either we are changing the value of a const object. Okay? So either we can basically skip it, since where is that concept? Yeah. So either we can skip this line or we can make it non-const, since it will be destroyed anyway. So even if we corrupt it, it won't matter much. Okay? So we can do any of these two things. So I think usually people make it non-const, but let's do it this way. And now if we go, oops, sorry, we have to compile it like this. Okay. So now you know move constructor is being called. Okay. And move constructor is being called because it's being created from an R value type. So this one is being called for the S4. Instead of copying data from temp, we are stealing the data, which is much quicker than copying data, especially when data is large. And this one will be called for that temporary object. Okay. Yes, Uzair.
Sir, in this case, which you have given example just now, that when we call our object by reference, so we must keep the actual object a constant or not. Means if we disturb the actual object, so it will disturb the other values also. So we have to keep it constant.
No, which object you're talking? You're talking about the type of the
Means
argument
from
type
here
of
we are taking the actual object, from here we are taking not copying but stealing the data from the reference. What if we disturb the value of that object?
Tell me the line number. It's this one. You're talking about the move constructor, or shall we go down? Shall I go down to the statement?
Sir, in every constructor, my string const, my string %p, you are passing each and every value by using const. So is it necessary to pass every value using const?
No, const is only for those objects whose values we do not want to corrupt, even accidentally. Okay, here on the right hand side of the assignment operator, there will be an actual object, existing object. Okay, so we pass it by const so that inside this function, we might not corrupt that value even accidentally.
Sir,
Okay,
can we
here,
copy the value of a const object into a non-constant object?
I mean, by assignment,
Yes, sir.
no, you will in C++ you will have to explicitly cast it. It does not allow converting const object into non-const object. Okay. So here, since temporary object is going to be destroyed anyway, so we can pass it as non-const so that we are able to modify its pointer to null. Okay, so is it clear what is the move operation and when a move constructor will be called? Yes, if move constructor is defined, it is always called instead of copy constructor. But only, I mean, to the right hand side, you should have a R value object. If it's a normal object, then the compiler will always choose a copy constructor. Move constructor will always be called for R type, R value objects only. Is it clear? So similarly, just like we have a normal assignment operator, we can also have a this where is it? Yeah, this is a normal assignment operator. We can also have a R value assignment operator. Again, we can make it const or not, depends. So here we delete the old value and this will not be needed. This will also not be needed. Copy will also not be needed, and str is equal to let's just have str. Okay. So now assignment operator can also have null object. For example, here instead of S4, I could have had S3. So here it's not a constructor is not being called, but a assignment operator is being called, and to the right of the assignment operator we'll have an R value object. So again, this optimization can work for assignment operators also. So whenever there's an R value object, temporary object to the right of assignment operator, instead of copying that data, we can steal that data. So just put a printf here to so you see, now S3 is being reinitialized with the move assignment operator. Similarly, the move constructor was called for the temporary object. Okay, so move constructor is something which is relatively new in C++. I mean, it's been here for like 10 years, but still not a lot of people know about it and use it, but it can be very, very handy or very, very useful if your objects are very, very large. If your objects use dynamic memory and they have very, very large sizes, then whenever there is a temporary object, instead of copying its data, we can move or steal its data, whether it is in constructor or in an assignment operator. But for this to work, I mean, you should know the concept of temporary objects, R values, and this kind of concepts. They should be very, very clear if you want to use this move constructors and move assignment operators. Show operator after S3 dot show. Okay. What was the question? S1 dot show after S3 dot show. Okay. Yeah, no, S1 and S3, they should be the same. We have not stolen anything from S1 and S3, we've only stolen from temporary objects. Okay, is it clear? Concept of temporaries and the move operation. And R value reference, a double ampersand is not a normal reference, it's an R value reference, and it can only bind to R values. So we cannot bind an R value reference to a L value. So if we pass P without const and modify P, sorry, null, the original S1 object won't come. Point to a null pointer. No, P which is being passed inside this constructor, I mean it was in the constructor, here it was LHS. It's not the what's it called, S1 or S3. If you remember this plus operator, let me go to the code. Here you see on the right of the assignment operator, we have the result of this S1 and S2. So this result of this S1 plus S2, it is a new object which was created, where was it created? So S1 plus S2, the sum, this is a new object which was created here. And we will be returning this retval object, and the value that will be received over there to the right of the assignment operator, it will be a copy of this retval object. And that copy basically is a temporary copy which is initialized using the copy constructor from this retval object. Okay, and then that temporary copy, it will be used to initialize S3. Yes, the result was an R value. Not the result, the copy of the result, which was basically a temporary value. If of result by ampersand L value, it will be called. Yes, but here we cannot, and the thing is here, operator plus, if I make it return by reference, it will be returning a reference to this local variable. Okay, local variables basically do not exist after the function call. So returning a reference to a local variable is not correct. Okay, it's an error. It's an error to return a reference to a local variable. Okay. So what we can do is we can basically simulate this behavior like this. Represent f, and here in f we basically f yeah, let's make it R. Okay, so now we are returning arg, which is basically the original value. So here if I, instead of this, if I call f s1, now f will return a reference which will basically not an r value. Okay? It will not be a copy. It's the original reference to the original variable s1. So here the move, now instead of the move assignment, it will call this simple assignment. F was not declared. Okay, sorry, it's a member function. Sorry. It's a member function. So instead of passing it as an argument, we don't need the argument. We can just return a reference to this. So you see, no temporary was made, there was no R value created, and sorry, no data was stolen, no move construct was called, but rather a simple assignment operator which makes a proper separate copy that was called. ओके चले टाइम उस्मान ताहिर बाय द वे एक्सीडेड के स्पेलिंग गलत हैं चले ठीक है आई विल स्टॉप दिस हियर यू गाइस कैन बेसिकली कंटिन्यू प्रैक्टिसिंग विद दिस अच्छा सॉरी ये कौन था एक्सीडेड वाला चलो डिलीट कर दिया ठीक है चलो मुझे था ओके तो ठीक है okay I'll stop this recording here let me stop the recording